Today I am going to be doing basic small unit tactics. This is going to be mostly from something that Nathan, who is Elijah, um, Fellfrost, and I put together, which came from some notes put together by, one second, Ian, and I'm going to mispronounce this name, so I'm sorry, but Ten Yun. I've never heard his name said, so and everyone knows that my words are useless. So, let's see this. So yeah, what this is going to be, I'm going to go through the basics of like what group combat is, teamwork, all that stuff. But if people have questions that come up, or you have questions about tactics or ideas or something like that, if they're pertinent to to what I'm saying, feel free to turn your mic on and we can talk about it. But if it's just a question you have, feel free to put it in the chat, and I'll be monitoring that and hopefully keeping an eye out so we can cover those things when they become pertinent to talk about. So, so if people have anything they want to, how do we not know you're moving? My boxes. Yeah, I don't know. We haven't seen each other in months. That's why. That's why no one knows that I'm moving. I'm just moving to another place in Kitchener, so nothing changes. Just where my mail goes to. So yeah, if anyone has any questions or topics you'd like to cover, please put them in the chat and we can go on it. But first, I'm going to start off with some basic definitions for our basic small unit classes. So first off, this is not the end all and be all. This is just certain things that we've discovered, and I've discovered when doing some research and when just looking at the field, and also through stuff that I picked up through sports. But yeah, so a tactic is an action to leverage your strengths to cover a weakness or to exploit a target's weakness. So, like, people think strategies and tactics are the same thing. I see that strategy is a sequence of tactics and of fail-safes and exploitables put together, while a tactic is the small actionable item on the field that makes a strategy come to fruition. Also, I'm going to be saying words wrong. You all just have to deal with it because that's who I am as a person, and you can't silence me. So hey, quiet. Yeah, don't worry. There's plenty of peanut gallery going on. Actually, no. The place that I'm moving into is actually much less strategically advantageous. It is. If I would be happier here if I were being attacked than I would at my other place for various topographical reasons. So yeah, the first thing we got to look at is teamwork. It's so to be part of a team, you must effectively engage, attack, defend, and provide mutual support if you're close enough, right? And support can vary greatly. Sometimes an archer, like 100 yards to the side, can provide support to a line just by firing arrows, right? Sometimes if you have big hitters on your team, they can provide support simply by moving off to the side and creating another front, which then one person is now taking up 3 more bodies, right, out of the fight. And depending on the trade-off, sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad, right? For instance, let's say in a ditch match, Garrett who, for people that I don't know who's Nine Blades here, but Garrett is one of our top sword fighters. In a ditch match, if he goes off to the side and he brings two, 3 to 4 new players whose first day, and they just stand the standoff, that's a misallocation of Garrett's resources because he's better just curb stomping the line, going through and flanking instead of just going off and siphoning off 3 people, right? Um, Going back to teamwork, you have to communicate. Not frequently, but when it matters the most. You'll hear a lot when people are like, not so much in movies, but in actual real-time radio chat, where they say clear the air, and that's just because people are starting to put in information that isn't pertinent to what's going on. You need your communication to matter, and if communication can be verbal or it can be nonverbal, and nonverbal is always the best because you're keeping your strategy and tactics and all of that a secret, but nonverbal has its drawbacks because you need someone to be paying attention to you as well as the opponent in front of you. But the most important thing about communication is to warn of impending threats and to synchronize. So in Amcard, calling dead is really, really important because it lets the other side know that someone is coming up and flanking, whether it be from the side or from behind, right? Calling out dead is very, very important. So when, like, that's why you see some people who are more experienced get really pissed off, is because if someone had called dead, then there wouldn't be a drum line going on in a ditch. And then synchronizing, when it's always good to have a baseline plan where it'd be like, all right, someone is the caller, or it doesn't have to be the leader, but is the caller. And when this person calls push, everyone goes. Not someone goes, oh, I might die going up against this person. No, everyone pushes. It has to be synchronized, because if it really sucks when you're the caller and you call push, and then all of a sudden you're the only one there, and then all of a sudden you have 3 polearms just aiming for your gut, right? And depending on how active you've been and your eating habits, it may be a bigger target, right? And your hips may not be able to lie that well, and you're gonna feel it. So you have to engage, attack, defend, and provide support. You have to communicate, and you have to move together as a team. And moving together as a team doesn't mean you have to be in a phalanx, like going hup, 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 hup. No, it could be you can have a meter between you two. You can have 50 meters between you two. But the thing is that it's the distance that you're keeping track of, and the distance all depends on what your tactic that you're trying to employ to achieve a greater strategy. So in a company battle, when you have your boards people up front, you want them tight for the most part so that those polearms can't go in and start manipulating those shields. And also gives your polearms a safe space to go and manipulate the other shields and find those pockets to go and hunt. But if your team then breaks up, you don't want this team going too far over or advancing too quickly while this team lags behind, because now you're opening up this team to attack. So you can break apart and you can keep up, right? And you can let the other team go ahead and then leave a flank open as a trap, right? But you have to be cognizant of your movements, or else you'll be caught out of position, and then you're just going to get gobbled up. Yes, and when you're doing tactics, I got 2 acronyms in this class. You're working on tactics and plans, you want to use the KISS method, and that is keeping it simple, stupid. Right? That's from personal experience, because once you start putting on layers and layers, you then start to get into theory crafting and be like, if we do this, then they'll do that, and then this will come in. And so that will never, it will pay out, but it's almost, you may as well just go in with like your base plan, because plans never survive contact. That's why you need fail safes. That's why you need contingencies. And it doesn't have to be elaborate contingencies. It's just like, if we push and we and we don't break them, then we reform. Right? We're going to fight for 30 to 45 seconds and then regroup. Those are the tactics. Like that's a simple contingency, right? And then you have someone, when you notice that you've been fighting for a long, you have someone called regroup, and then everyone tries to disengage and regroup, and you try to catch people off, right? And you want to keep your plan simple. You can have a strategy that goes on in stages, but when you're attacking this group, it's we're going to go around from the side. We're going to hold, and then they're going to come, and then they're going to come in. We're going to just hold them off, and we're going to beat them because it's going to be a melee fight, and we have the armor and the men's to grind them out. You're going to go into a fight of attrition, right? It's keeping those in small chunks so that your brain doesn't have to realize when I swing, I got to fight. I got to fight player one, and then I got to move over to player two before their archer gets a beat on me, right? And so it's just keeping those in little bite-sized chunks so that you go and then you reform and then you move on. So yes, moving on to the tenets of group combat. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish tenets, and that is, and a lot of these are going to blend into each other. So yeah, so the tenets are team synergy, positional advantage, decisive points, pattern recognition, and have a plan. So going back up at the top, team synergy. So team synergy is knowing your team and also knowing the other team. Gildemox, thanks for putting on the class earlier on modding. Sorry I couldn't make it. I had baby things. But yes, going back to the current class, team synergy is knowing your team and knowing the team that you're going up against. How well do these people on your team work together? How is communication? Can you operate on unspoken communication? And then is your team open to reviewing? And reviewing is keeping things constructive, not blaming people. So they're hitting our left hard. How do we stop that? Not you on the left need to fight better. Right? That doesn't help things. You on the left, you need to stab less. That's not conducive to the way, right? You ask them what they need for support, or you provide ideas and examples for that support, and maybe that'll jog someone's memory, right? And this could be after a battle game, after a company fight, or it could just be, if there's a wipe on your team, right? It varies for when you're going to review, and there is a time and a place to review when everyone's hot and heated. You want to review because your brain will not remember that stuff. You want everyone in a state where they are focused on reviewing. So yes, knowing your team and theirs. So I talked about this a little while ago when the Admiral was doing her panel, when she was organizing her panels. But when I'm going in for a game with the Canucks, when we're doing the warm-ups, when I'm doing my warm-ups and everything, I'm wearing glasses, and that's not only because it helps protect my eyes from UV rays, but it's also so no one knows what I'm looking at. And what I'm looking at is for how people are interacting on the other team. Are they together, or are they kind of spread out right before a match? If they're spread out, then I'm thinking that, okay, either they might be the first time fighting with each other, so they won't know each other too well. Maybe they're going to be a little bit distracted, so we might be able to do a good hard push right at the beginning, and then kind of break them apart at the beginning, get them on the back end, right? If they're together, okay, well, who seems to be working well? Are they looking at spell lists? Are they planning things out, right? And then at the smaller level, I'm looking at the personal level, where what are some quirks that the players are doing? Is someone favoring their left side? Is someone favoring the right? Right, different things. If someone's favoring their left, it's not that I'm going to go and just keep wailing on that left ankle. No, but I'm going to try to move to maneuver on their left side, because they're going to be slower to react, or they're going to be they don't want to react on that side, right? So it's just focusing in and then looking at your own team. Okay, sometimes you just have people who click really, really well together, and you kind of pick up people's your synergy just is kind of natural. Sometimes you have to work harder at it. You know that someone is aggressively pushes, then build up a strategy. Be like, okay, don't go forward until the person behind you push like holds your shirt and just gives you pressure. Nick, who is my company commander, I think. I don't know what the ranks are in the company, but he tends to be the person in charge, and it's great. He will grab my shirt and he will maneuver me to where he needs me to be. And this isn't a boss thing. He says, you are going to be the most effective for the team here. And that's because we have mutual trust. Okay? If he moves me and then I get hit in the side, that's, as long as he gets the kill and then the flag, that's okay. Because as a boardsman, it's my job to like take the blows, right? And that's also part of team synergy, is so people understand what their role in the team is. So in the company battle, I'm a boardsman. I am meant to take hits and not deal a lot of damage. My sword is a manipulation tool, and then sometimes a weapon, right? My shield is to block as many people as possible and manipulate the polearms coming in, right? And like I said, my sword is meant to deflect those spears up, down, to the side, right? It's meant to tie things up. My sword is not meant to go and get bloodied. If it has a chance to, absolutely take a limb, get a kill, especially when the two sides are done kind of scrimmaging and then there's a breaking point and things get all critical, right? That's when things get messy. But I meant to take the hits. If I get hit in the arm, I immediately drop my sword and switch my shield to the other arm, because I am more effective keeping the pole behind me alive than running around with a single sword. Okay. Yes. Moving on to positional advantage is where you are and where you are planning to attack. So you won't typically you want your strongest defense, and this could be armor, big shields, things that take up the most space. You want that in the front, right? You want to hit the opponent from the sides or from the back, and that's or basically from where they least expect. Now, that's not just because that's you're hoping, like if they put all their armor and big shields on the sides and everything, then that's fine. But the reason why you want to attack from the sides is that it puts a little bit of a kink into the way that it creates another level of communication. If you're attacking head on, people have a wide view and they're able to take in information without communication. So they know that this side's coming in, this side's coming in, and that side's coming in. But as soon as you get outside of the peripheral, they now need someone else to come to communicate that they're getting attacked from that side. So there's another level of communication that needs to be added in the fight, and it helps your side because you see that the other team's getting flanked, but the other team doesn't know. So you're able to react to that and help apply pressure on that side, or help pressure another side now that there's pressure being put on there. A lot of pressure going on. It's a pressure cooker. And that goes into figuring out where to apply pressure at the correct place and time. So like I said, going back to the company battle, is that you'll typically have two lines because they have boards people up front, and then they'll have some flankers kind of off to the side, maybe going off trying to make a far front or waiting for a point to go. And then there's going to be a lot of polearm action just going back and forth, and then eventually either someone's going to become someone's going to see an opening and try and take it. Someone's going to become restless enough to try to make an opening, or another team's going to come in and just mess everything up, and then it's just a free for all. But eventually, there is going to be a breaking point, and if it's an opening, you decide to take it, right? So the plan could be when the polearms, when they've taken out a particular player, that's when everyone advances. It could be that when they take out 3 people, that's when the team advances. It could be when you have your numerical advantage hit a certain ratio, you go, right? There are different points, and it's about studying the other team and being like, okay, when is it time to keep form, shielded, and looking for creating an opening, and when are those openings that everyone has to go and take part in? And going off of that, it's not that everyone needs to know that the opening has happened and you're taking advantage. There has to be someone who sees it, has to call it, right, to let everyone know, and that usually that could just be push, right? Push can be a very I like that one a lot. Meaning that it's just not that you have to, and not that everyone has to be attacking. It's just everyone is advancing and putting pressure on the opponent. So yes, decisive points, knowing when to attack and identifying the team's linchpin. This kind of goes into the positional advantage, and these are the critical points in the fight where things change the outcome of battle. Some examples, like punching through a gap, a critical player getting taken out by a lucky shot, and a line collapsing or gets enveloped. That kind of goes into your positional advantage for where you've manipulated the other line to a point, or something just happens and you're able to those decisive points. Going into pattern recognition, it's learning from the battles and gaining experience. It's like, if practicing was only meant to make teams physically stronger, help them have better endurance and stamina, it would just be working out. But the reason why teams practice, they do drills not to get in better shape. That is a side effect, right? Teams do drills so that everyone works in their muscle memory, and you get a second nature feeling for where your teammates are. When I was playing hockey, I played with the same defenseman for, I think, was it 2 or 3 years, and when we were trying out in the second year, we always made sure that we were paired up, and we would manipulate the lines so that, oh yeah, you can go in front of me. So I paired up with him because, since we were partners, we knew where each other was when we were doing drills during the tryouts, when we were doing the skirmishes during the tryouts, right? We had a distinct advantage over the other people coming in because we had been working with each other. So I didn't have to look to know where Ross was. I would throw the puck over, right? Either take the hit or give the hit, right? And then he'd go and he'd take a shot, right? Or he'd pass it to who he saw was open because he had a wider view of what's going on. He wasn't getting pressured, right? You do drills and you understand how your teammates work so that you can better key off those, and you can take advantage and cover each other's weaknesses, right? It's a technique. So learning pattern recognition and understanding how to employ it at the right time is a technique for reducing information overload. And that's why you only want one person talking at a time. If you have, like, everyone's experienced information overload where they say, I have no idea what happened out there, right? Happens all the time in Amtgard, where people go, we died, right? It happens to me a lot because you don't know what's happening all the time. You can't, right? But you can learn because, like, there are times I know that, like, depending on the class, I know Moss is going to be going up the side, right? I know that certain people, they like to come straight up the middle, right? So I know that that's going to happen. So when it goes, I can be like, so did they do this or who killed you? That, yeah, okay, that confirms what I thought. Okay, we have to look out for that because they're playing this strategy that they either typically play or don't. Right? One sec. Hey! Sorry, Freya saw someone. Heaven forbid. Um, and when you're first starting out, like developing and working on your pattern recognition, right? You don't want to focus on the minute. Be like, where was right? Where was Mark? Where was Chase? Right? You want to be looking at the big picture. Okay, what happened? The left flank fell, right? Or they all of a sudden they burned a lot of verbals, right? That's what it was. You want to look at the bigger picture and then you start shaving off and you're getting into the minute. And it's because you're building up a skill where you're going to be able to take in the big picture and kind of understand things a lot quicker. And then you can look into the more minute details and then develop your tactics and strategies like that. But you want to focus on the big picture at the beginning as you're developing these skills instead of asking, where is this person? Where is that person? What spell did they use? Right? You don't want to do that. You want to look at the big picture. Yeah. So the way that I look at it is that the individual pixels, no one, when you're looking at an image, initially you don't care about the individual pixels or dots. It's the lines, the shapes, and the brush strokes that really pull together a piece of art, right? And then as you're studying this art, you start getting into more minute details of, okay, oh, that's what this brush stroke kind of represents. This is the reason why they took this color. Oh, they did these dots and they chose these pixels of color for whatever reason. And so the last tenant is to have a plan. No plan survives first contact with the enemy. To it defines the initial movements. The initial it defines your initial movements on how you want to engage and potentially go after that. But you have to be ready to keep moving. Your plan will most likely change depending on the resources you lose. And this in this class, and when you're thinking of, especially actually in Amp when you're thinking of tactics, players are resources, right? And you yourself are a resource. So if you die but your team won, then you did the right thing. Because you know what, you're gonna wait. I think the longest death count I've been a part of has been 5 minutes. So you're gonna wait 5 minutes and playing again, but you got the point, right? You won the game, right? There are some in Amcar, there are some people that were just meant to die. No one clipped that. No one posted on the internet, please. So yes, you want to have a plan. You want to stick to it as much as possible because if a plan fails, you can learn from it and you can adjust. If a plan is failing and then everyone scatters and does their own plan, it may work out a couple times, right? Depending on the situation. An audible, calling an audible doesn't mean that you're like abandoning the plan, right? It just means you're changing a small aspect of it, right? But if everyone abandons the plan, then no one's learning anything, right? You want to stick to a plan so everyone knows what the plan is going forward. There are some considerations when coming up with a plan. The acronym is GET IT. So the first is, so I'm going to go through it. Goal, enemy, terrain, itinerary, and time available. Your goal is just, what are you trying to accomplish? Is your goal to eliminate a team, a single opponent, get them into their death count, or to freeze them, or to whatever, right? Stop them, right? Is it to actually achieve the point objective in the game. So goal, and now you have your enemy. What resources and capabilities does the opposing team have available? So you don't want to send a unenchanted 6-point warrior up against a bunch of wizards, okay? Because one, they're probably just going to get. One of them's probably going warlock and just says you're not playing right now, and then burned. You burned. You've either burned True Grit to get back, at which they're just gonna burn you again, right? Then you're just trading refresh points, right? Or if they're smart, they're gonna keep on taunting that warrior and get them running, and then your warrior is now burning physical energy, right? That they will not have later on in the game, right? So you need to know what resource and capabilities the opposing team has available and how you can help mitigate or negate those resources or how to overcome those resources, right? Terrain, what obstacles and constraints exist. A lot of amp guard happens on an open field. So this doesn't come up very often, but every once in a while, people get out flagging poles and they put up hard barriers. A lot. Some of the big events happen in forested areas. When there's a natural bottleneck that comes into play, you want to take advantage of those terrain aspects and utilize them to help overcome and achieve your goal. There's itinerary, which is the flip of your enemy, and that is what resources and capabilities do you have? What do you have in your arsenal to overcome and overpower the enemy? And also, what is the minimal amount you need to expend to overcome? Because the more resources you have later, the better off you are. There are times when there is a minute left in a battle game and you have a bunch of refresh abilities still available. Go nuts, because now's the time. Now is the time to just burn everything around you and let God sort them out, right? And that goes into the last example, the last consideration, which is time available. How much time do you have to prepare and to execute this plan, right? If you're getting into a fight of attrition and there's a minute left, right? It's probably not going to work because it's just armor grinding up against armor, and it's just there's gonna be men's going back and forth, releases, right? You have a lot to consider. Sometimes you don't want to go for the kill, right? If there's 45 seconds left in the game, you don't want to kill someone. You want to freeze them. You want to stop them with your spell balls, right? Or even verbals, because you're taking, if there's 45 left, let's just say a minute. If there's a minute left in the game and you freeze someone with a spell ball or stop them with a spell ball, that they are out of the game unless someone spends a resource to get them back in it. If you use a verbal, they're out for half of the game, right? And you have to keep that in consideration, right? You don't want to go around, and when there's a minute left, you don't want to go around picking up your arrows when, unless the fight is way away and you know that you're not going to influence it. Don't be like, oh, I got to pick up my arrows so I can shoot more. No, you have to put your bow somewhere safe, get your sword, and go help the push when you're out of arrows and there's less than a minute left, because there's so little time for you to be effective unless you're a speed archer and all of that other crap, right? If you can still affect someone and you're an archer in a minute and you have no arrows, but you can still somehow shoot and all that, more power to you. Yeah. And now, moving on to localizing combat power superiority. So this this is bringing an overwhelming force into a focused area. Now, there are three main approaches to do this. There is the numerical approach, the expert approach, and the ranged approach. Right? So the numerical approach is simply outnumbering your opponents. And typically you want, when you're just doing a straight up outnumbering of opponents, it's way better with a 3-to-1, right? But you really want to be double the numbers, and that's just everyone is equal across the board. They're not like, oh, this person, there's the sword knight on this side, and then we have a bunch of new people, right? The sword knight is going to work through a bunch of new people just because they're better. This is everyone is equal as equal as you can be. If like I'm like, okay, I'm going up against this person. Yeah, these teams are pretty evenly matched. All right, we want to out take on the numerical approach. We want 2-to-1. So the pros is that it can minimize casualties and even exchanges. And by even exchanges, it means that it goes tit for tat until someone goes down. It's typically a rapid speed of engagement, and it rewards aggressiveness. So this is literally just the call for push, and everyone moves forward, and it's a simple, overwhelming, doing an information overload, and you're just taking advantage of the amount of bodies and swords and sharp points on your side to the gooey and soft flesh of your enemy, right? So 2 swords are typically better than 1 when they're wielded by 2 different people, right? So you're just overwhelming the enemy because they can't strike at all of you at the same time. The cons to the numerical approach is that it reduces overall mobility. More coordination is needed. It takes resources away from other parts of the fight, and it increases the chances of friendly fire. So it reduces mobility because you have a big group of people all going towards a single point, or it's a little broader point, right? So not everyone can go around and be moving and fluid in the grander scheme of the battle game. More coordination is needed because everyone needs to go at the same time. Going back to the example I used at the very beginning, where it really sucks when you call for a push and you're the only one out there, and then all of a sudden you just get gutted by like three arrows, 3 polearms, right? Or you're like, ow, and then you go, and then you just, why am I the only one fighting? And then you look back and people are still in the bushes, looking like, oh man, it looks like he's having a really hard time out there, right? It takes resources away from other parts of the fight because in order for the numerical approach, you need to maybe 3 times the number of people that you're going up against. So those resources may be better spent elsewhere, or other places may be feeling the pressure because they don't have the reinforcements or support that they need. And it increases the chances of friendly fire because the more swords that you're swinging, the more body parts that you have there, the higher chance that one of those swords hits one of your body parts, right? So, and that falls into coordination again. The next one is the expert approach, and this is the reliant of a skilled or experienced fighter. This is typically when, if you have a squad, it's usually about 1 person. Right? So the pros are it relies on 1, maybe 2 people to be utilized. It can be used to draw off additional people, right? And there's reduced coordination needed. And so an example of this is just 1 person, just while the fight's going in the center, they just walk off to the side, and then they got 3, maybe 4 people following them, right? And depending on who those people are, it may be a fair exchange that, okay, now the combat power that person A has is outweighed by players 2, 3, and 4, right? So now that person A has siphoned off a larger portion of combat power than what their team has to fight. So it's a fair exchange. And you know what? Sometimes the expert can go and wipe the field with that wipe the field because their combat power is higher. So they wipe out that contingent that they broke off, right? And then they engage in the fight again, right? The cons for the expert approach is that the expert may be potentially overwhelmed. The chance of an even fight is increased because you can have someone who, like, oh yeah, that person is definitely worth like 3, maybe 4 people in a fight. But the thing is, they're fighting against the even exchange, right? They're fighting as 3 or 4 people, and they're pressed for it. They can do it. They're pressed, right? And so you have a chance of losing your expert in that moment. And it can reduce the speed of engagement because now you have one person fighting off a group, and while they can do it, it's going to be it's going to be a lot slower slog because they probably need to be careful of their own movements, and getting back into the fight is going to be the time is going to be extended. Bum, bum, bum. So the last one is the ranged approach, right? And this the ranged is your spells, right? Your polearms, your arrows, especially. And the important thing about this, the pros, is that you are damaging or killing outside of the engagement range. Okay? So everyone's seen the meme. I want the first guy to invent an arrow. I really want to stab that guy way over there, right? Like, arrows and atlatls, like, they were game changers, because you no longer have to worry about getting hurt, because you're stabbing that person way over there, and they're not going to hurt you unless they have arrows or atlatls or other ranged things. Is to take out the enemy before they even have a chance of attacking you. The enemy may be reluctant to close because of the range, especially with an archer. So I always use this example because it's been burned in my memory, and I was so angry for like 5 minutes. But he had his name is Raspberry. Oh my god, I can't believe I'm spacing out his name.
Alex?
Mark, if you're still around.
Bren?
Sorry. Oh yes, Alex. There, Brent. Is that you, Alex?
Yeah. Hi.
Awesome. All right. So Alex, Alex was the cause of my anger, but he did a great, amazing job. Was because we were at Bati. Alex has the high ground, right? And he has an arrow in his bow. I come around the woods and I see two players, both of them with shields, and he is holding them off with one arrow, and he's taunting them, and he says, "The first person who takes a step is getting shot. I don't," right? And he's doing it. And so, so I come around, and there's these two players, and they're blocking up, and people are slowing down the advance because there's Alex at the top, being Alex, right, with one arrow holding off two people with shields, and it's just, I go, "What are you doing?" And so I move up. Alex shoots, it hits my shield, and Alex takes off running. And so I chase Alex for like 5 or 10 strides just to make sure that he's running, because there's no way I'm going to catch Alex. I just want him out of there, right? I'm like, "Let's go." And it made me so mad because, right, like, the ranged aspect was that the people were afraid of engaging because they didn't want to get shot first, right? And that's the thing, is that ranged keeps people away because they know that they are at a severe disadvantage, right? Severe disadvantage, because they're far away and you're going to get stabbed from way over there. And another pro for ranged is has a potential for a faster resolution with little risk. So everyone knows that arrows go fast, words go faster, and they take out your enemy quicker. Polearms are also, I'm not sure if I mentioned that before, but they're also part of the ranged approach, where it's once again keeping people at bay and keeping them and wearing away at their resources. And resources include stamina, because if you just keep hitting that shield, right, you're going to eventually tire them out, and eventually their shield is going to lower to here, and that's where it comes in and you take them out, right? So it's making sure that your enemy is getting hampered and dealt with before they have a chance of coming up. The cons to archery is not archery, sorry, ranged. That mobility can be reduced for your team to provide protection. That's basically making sure that your ranged people have avenues of attack and avenues of defense. And that's basically having a shield wall in front of them. You need that shield wall to make sure that no other polearm is going to sneak past and get them in the side, or no arrow is going to come up, or just someone really quick like Alex is going to come through and then just have them or throw the one throwaway that they decided to bring onto field that day. The reason why I'm so mad about it is how effective he is with it. So it's a slight another con is that there's a little more coordination needed when you're advancing, right? And this is more so your chances are like you don't really want to go and be like, all right, the field is wiped, now let's move forward. The field is wiped, now let's move forward, right? It's need to make sure that those avenues of offense and defense are checkmarked and taken care of. And typically, I would rely on if you're trying to employ the ranged approach. Typically, I would rely on the person doing the ranged action because they have a wider view of what's going on most of the time. So it's mostly want to check in, be like, are we good to advance? Yes, because they're kind of aware of where they're feeling threatened as opposed to where you are looking off into. And also with the ranged approach, there's an increased chance of friendly fire because when an archer yells duck and you don't, you may be hit. Or if you're coming back from a side fight, the archer might just react and shoot at you. Or if you were frozen and typically you fight the archer might look at you and then just release. And then you get hit by the arrow and you go frozen on your team. And then you have a good laugh about that, but you burn it in your memory so that you can never forgive them. And then they will forever be known as the person that does that. So I know I said that there were 3 approaches, but because everyone here took time out of their day to come and listen to me ramble on about BS tactics, I'm going to give you the super secret 4th approach, right? Super secret 4th approach. And this approach is combining multiple approaches. So it's combining your expert with your numerical. It's combining your ranged with your expert to maybe soften up. It's combining your range with your numerical, right? I'm not really good at the numbers thing. So if someone wants to crunch those hard-hitting numbers and figure out exactly how many approaches you can have, right? Feel free to do it. I won't pay attention to it. So yes, the combined approach, which is using multiple approaches, which honestly is the ultimate goal when you're coming up with tactics, right? You want to start off with using 1 or 2 approaches, and then when you feel comfortable with employing those, you want to then add more in. It doesn't have to be like a whole like half and half. It could be little dashes, a little this. So the pros is that they are more difficult to encounter because there are more parts to them, right? And you can force opponents to react to you and keep them off balance. The cons are that increased coordination is needed and a potential for allocation of resources being used incorrectly can also happen. But that all comes with practice and skill development and review. The most important thing when you're trying to become someone who develops tactics, who can call tactics on the fly, is to review, not like you want to have an honest review with yourself after the fact. And I'm talking about after the battle game, maybe after the event. And it's an honest review where it's like, if someone failed, that's fine. It's Amtgard, right? The worst thing that happens if you fail, well, I guess the worst thing that happens if you fail is that you can't play Amtgard anymore because you hurt yourself too severely. But like in game, the worst thing that happens is that you die or you lose the game, right? And who cares in the grand scheme of things, right? So you want to have an honest review with yourself. Be like, did I make the wrong call? Okay, I made the wrong call. Why did I make the wrong call? Was it because I didn't know the opponent well enough? Because that can happen, right? Were they just better fighters? That could happen, right? And you don't want to look for like scapegoats to get the blame. Not there shouldn't be any blame. There should just be reasons why, reasons why something didn't work out, and it could be I flubbed a spell, right? Um, thanks. If people want me to run long, I can keep talking about this stuff, but I'm sure people will have enough. Um, right? And then if you are with people who you fight with regularly, um, try to have an honest review with them. So, for instance, the last company battle that we took part in was in Felfrost. Christ, was it maybe just a year ago? I think yeah, it may have been just over a year ago, and so we didn't come in first in the company battle, and Nick and I were looking at it, and one of the reasons were because we were trying to fight on two flanks. We should have chose one side and pressed it instead of trying to defend, because we thought, okay, if we use the terrain will help us. But all it did was split our forces and put us against two separate teams. Now, this isn't saying that if we would have focus fired on one team, it would have worked out. It's just that the main reason why we lost was because we divided our forces and we got too much attention on us. We didn't spread out the aggro, right? We we hit hard. We got a bunch of flags early, and then right to try and set a pace. But the thing is, we got the target on our backs, and we split our forces in doing that. So it was just a basic brief review, and it got us thinking, okay, maybe we need to be when we're fighting in such a tight space with some terrain, maybe we have to be a little more mobile, right? And not stick and plant our roots. um so I got real brief tactics that kind of go in that I've kind of been talking about. Um, and then I got some maneuvers. Type in if you want to go into basic tactics or maneuvers. So tactic or move. And that's where I'll kill the rest of my time. So the first kind of use the tactics. So we're going to be skipping the basic tactics. Um, the tactics are that it's theories on what to do. So with that break, I am going to give myself some water. Okay. All right. Bum, 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 bum. I don't see anyone coming up, so I'm gonna go into the actual maneuvers because the tactics I kind of been hinting at and talking about um throughout throughout the day, hour. And so I'm hoping that these come up my view. But so I'm going to share my screen. So the first one that I have, can I just have someone confirm that it's showing up?
Yes, it is.
Cool. All right. So yeah, the first maneuver I call is the toilet bowl. This is a counter maneuver. As you can see, it's with the intent of to blunt a flank and then flank the aggressing team. So if you'll see here, so the red is the team that's aggressing, and the blue is the team executing the toilet bowl. So what you're going to do is that so as red approaches, you're going to have your team. Oops, I'm using my fingers, and that doesn't help. You're going to have your team split out wide, right? Out wide. This is a play on uh, uh, a, a maneuver that's a little more basic called a spiral, where everyone moves in the same line. So in the spiral, everyone would be moving left or everyone would be moving right. So, but in the toilet bowl, you split, and the reason why you split is because now you've turned the fight into two fronts. And so what you're doing is that as you're moving out this way, you're also turning the other team on itself and coming back. And so this side is going like this, and you're turning because this person has to make a choice on whether they want to go this way or whether they want to go that way. And they're lagging behind because the blues have switched up the initiative. So red took the initiative to advance and tried to flank, but then blue switched up the initiative because now red is chasing them. And also, as blue goes this way, up and around, they're not meant to engage in red. They're meant to go past red, and then blue number 2 is meant to keep going past red, but as red turns to try and go after the bait, they're going to get hit, they're going to lose a limb, they're going to get legged, right? So, and you're not meant to be getting kills. You're meant to simply get out of the fight and then turn it on itself and then see where you end up. If you can take people out, so much the better, but that's a bonus. What you want to do is that you want to take the initiative that red put on you and you want to reverse it on them. So now they're chasing you instead of you being static and defending. So as you can see here, it'll stop a pocket or death triangle before it fully forms. It turns an opponent's division against them. It helps you gain field control. The cons are that it divides up your force, and there's a heavy reliance on communication and synchronized movements because you need to know which way you're going, because it really depends on where the point spear, right, the center is going to be. Okay? And it's just understanding, and sometimes it's just instinct where to go, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. And so to counter the toilet bowl, you try to crush one side. So if you see that they're toilet bowling, you try to crush one side, whatever side is the weaker side, while just holding off or letting the others run around. And also is to do lateral movements yourself. So if you're advancing and you see that they are trying to toilet bowl on you, the counter is to simply widen your line as well, so that you're not giving them the flank. That's basically it. The next one up is the L cut. This is your classic flank maneuver. And it's a one-sided flanking maneuver that is meant to cause the opponent's wing to face the flanker. Right? It's simple, makes easy openings. You can easily switch into a death triangle. I realized that I put these out of order, which is fun. Right, and the base, the things that it typically needs superior numbers, even though you can have expert approaches that can achieve this. It leaves your flanker vulnerable because they are alone and without support of their team, and the baseline needs to keep pressure to keep the flanker alive, because you see, so the reds are doing the attacking. I chose to have the numerical approach. The reason why I didn't double up on numbers is simply because I didn't have space. This one person goes, and then everyone is engaging. Everyone is engaging. They are not just letting flanker go around and do their thing. Everyone is engaging, because if these people don't do anything and this flanker goes, all of a sudden you have maybe these two people go up and fight them, and now they're fighting 3 people, and now these reds are caught flat-footed and they have to go help engage, right? So when the flanker goes, that's when it's called push, and the flanker goes. Everyone should go forward and try to take up attention, soak up some blows, throw some shots, right? Cause chaos, because other team, you want to information overload the other team, make it so that they can't react to the true danger, which is the flanker coming in to roll the line. To counter this, you can do a counter push where if it's happening here, the other team is going this way, and so you kind of get the two lines just kind of going around each other like that. You can do the lateral movement, which is a toilet bowl, right? Or you can do a one-side lateral movement. It doesn't matter, where you're just going up and out, and that's just extending your line, making sure that that flank doesn't happen. And then, yeah, counter flank, right? The death triangle, sometimes known as a kill pocket. It's really just a double flank maneuver. The death triangle is meant to envelop the target on the flanks, and at the same time, is causing them to create openings for your team to take advantage of. So it easily overwhelms the opponents. It's adaptable as long as there is a new, as long as you have a number advantage, and it is fairly safe because now not only are you getting a dangerous swords person going around the sides, it's happening on the same. So now this blue doesn't know what's happening on that end. That blue doesn't know what's happening on this end. They're turning to face the true danger that's coming in, which leaves an opening for this red. Right? It's you're doing a true information overload as long as everyone is engaging. Right? And it's typically safe because now you have the people in the center are engaging directly what's in front of them. These people should be just going around turning the opponents. And again, just like with the toilet bowl, they're not meant really go and kill the people on the edge. If they do, that's great. But what's important is that they turn their backs to the advancing line coming at them, right? Because if these people, so if you're going around here and you're going around and they're going around there, and then these people advance, this person turns, right? There could be a shot coming in this way against this advancement, but this advancement is expecting that and can defend against it with a shield. Meanwhile, going after the weak side here, getting the kill, and then focusing on engaging. And now this red is free because they're not worried about this, and they're going in and coming and attacking. And then you start just overwhelming the opponent, literally chipping away and watching their line crumble. The cons are that yes, typically it does require superior numbers. The dynamics can change very quickly depending on if pressure is relieved or momentum stops. It requires fast reaction and a lot of aggression. It requires good positioning and synchronized movement. And to counter, lateral movement is all and toilet bowling is always the counter to flanking. It is a potential counter. It's one of the tools that are always in that toolbox. You break through a side, eat at the triangle at one side at a time. So that's basically just hopefully this person can hold off these two people, and these three people are just trying to just tear apart this one side, and you're focus firing on one end. And then engage the flanks directly to turn to a line flank, and that's basically just you try it. These two side people are just trying to blunt the flank to make sure that they are not going anywhere, and you just turn it into two hits going at each other. Oh yeah, that is all. That's my time. I still have time to go over questions and stuff. If people want, if there's anything, feel free to unmic and we can talk. If you have a question and you don't feel like talking, post it in the text. We can see how it goes. And yeah, but that's pretty much my time. I got some other stuff, but I think that's enough. Be rambling for one day, anyways.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Good session.
Thanks. Yeah, and like I said, this is basic stuff. The thing is to experiment, right? Especially at your local parks. Try certain things, and like, if you're part of a company and you're on a ditch line, right? Fire up. go shoulder to shoulder, or be like, hey, let's try this, right? With your company people, try things out, and the more you play shoulder to shoulder or in a support function, like in your traditional roles on a company, the better off you will be, right? Also, sparring is a good way, and that's because you learn the opponent's you learn your teammates' weaknesses, and then you can shore up, and you also learn their strengths, so you know where to lean on them. So yeah, it's good. Spar with the people, and always use flush. So when you're getting flanked, just yell flush, 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 flush. Not only will your team react to it, but the other team will not know at all what's happening. Okay.
Unless that other team is sitting here listening.
No, don't forget. The other team is garbage. The team that you're a part of is always the best, and the other team is trash. Remember that. Unless it's a team of scouts, and then there's no point. Call it a victory and walk off.